I've had the privilege to speak in front of dozens of audiences across Canada, ranging from high school students to young professionals. And I get asked all the time whether or not I still get nervous before I step on stage in front of an audience and speak in public. And the answer unequivocally is always yes. I get nervous every single time, driven by that deep fear of being judged, which I'm sure we've all experienced. But one thing I've learned about public speaking and how to calm the nerves that come with it is to remind myself of this: focus on connection, not performance. You see, performance says, how can I wow them with my content, my knowledge, and what can I do to impress them and be likable? It's a hustle to win others over. Performance says, we're different because I have or know something that you don't. Versus connection, which says, I am here willing to share myself with you in hopes that you can recognize your experience in my story. Connection is about allowing everyone in the room to feel and know that they matter, and to be reminded that they matter, because we were made to be real, not perfect. So connection then, at the heart of it, is allowing others to see you as you are in all your realness. Terrifying? Yes. Vulnerable? Absolutely. But it's also the access point to our most generous gift that we can give to others, which is our authenticity and our truth. Because if people can see themselves in your story, then they can connect with you. But it takes courage to be willing to own and share your story. It's in these moments that I have before I step on a stage with all my nerves and feelings of imposter syndrome, before any talk that I give, that I have to remind myself of this over and over again. It's about people. Connect to who they are as humans, not what they do. And so a strategy that I've developed to overcome a lot of my nerves before speaking in front of an audience is I make it a point to go into the audience to meet as many people as I possibly can, to have a moment where I can look them in the eyes and share a quick conversation, interact with them, to be able to say, hey, what brought you here and what's gotten you excited today? It's in these short moments and interactions that I can actually fact check my internal dialogue, because I've been able to connect with them. And to fact check and know that people aren't waiting for you to impress them, they're simply waiting for you to contribute. And they're looking for an authentic experience of you, which will give them permission to also show up authentically. So authenticity then is what drives connection. So whether it's an audience of 100 or you're speaking to one other person, authenticity means letting go of the need to impress, perform, or perfect. And it means flipping the purpose of any presentation or conversation. Because you see, connection does not happen when we can make someone say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Rather, connection is what happens when we can make someone else say, oh, wow, I thought I was the only one. This is where true connection happens, when people feel valued, seen, and heard. And so that moment where you can share with one other person to really see them for who they are in all their realness, and then you can have that shared moment that says, wow, me too, is one of the most powerful and generous gifts that we can give to someone else. Me too says, I see you, I know the struggle, and you are not alone. My best friend Joel is one of the greatest listeners I know. And a number of years ago, I was struggling with a lot of feelings of grief, anxiety, and a general sense of feeling really overwhelmed. And I remember hesitating to express what I was going through with him during a phone call when we were catching up. And eventually I finally did. And I held my breath waiting for his response. I braced myself for what I thought was going to be a series of advice, suggestions on what to do, or a series of, hey, look on the bright side, or at least it's not this type of response, which I knew would be tiring and exhausting to hear. Instead, he surprised me by saying, after a really long pause, wow, that sounds really hard. It was one of the most generous and impactful responses that he could have given me, and a powerful moment of connection. So often when someone is stuck in pain or hurting, we're scared to acknowledge or wrap words around or name what they're feeling. Instead, we rush to fix, change, or minimize their hurt by rushing to offer advice or solutions. But when we rush to fix and are afraid to acknowledge someone else's real emotions, we disconnect with them. When someone comes to you with their struggles or their problems, how easy it is and quick are we to figure out, what should I say to make them feel better, or what piece of advice can I offer them? But how much harder is it for us to sit with them in their silence, to not rush to respond, and to instead to just let them be and to be with them, to do the hard work of staying curious and to practice taking their perspective, to allow them to feel seen, valued, and heard. Because rarely can a response make someone feel better. We can't actually make anyone feel anything. What we can do, though, is connect through empathy, and it's connection that heals. To be able to have the courage to say, yes, this does sound hard, and yes, this matters because you matter. I may not have experienced the same thing, but I know these emotions because I've experienced them too. And now more than ever, we're all feeling experiences and experiencing moments of feeling stuck and feeling a little fragile. And what's going to bring us together and to allow us to move through these moments is not more advice, not more self-help books or more podcasts, but it's actually the courage to reflect back to each other the truth within how we're feeling and to make the hard choice to connect with the emotions underpinning our experiences, to identify and not be afraid to name and articulate our feelings. This is emotional literacy. If we can't name an emotion, we can't move through it. So connection then means listening, really genuinely, truly listening to understand, not to respond, and to have the courage to name our emotions and to communicate our understanding of them with others. It is a vulnerable choice because it's a choice to also recognize these emotions in ourselves and to connect with our own emotions in order to connect with others. So if we want to invite more moments of connection into our lives, if we want to show up for others in a way that is impactful, we must be willing to acknowledge and place words around our own feelings and emotional struggles. This is the basis of connection, empathy, and trust. And so connecting with others then, being able to hold space for someone to be valued, seen, and heard, and to hold space for them to show up as all that they are and to meet them where they're at, means that we also must be willing to lean in and be willing to allow ourselves to be seen, valued, and heard as all that we are. And to connect with others means first connecting with ourselves authentically and deeply, and to not be afraid to vocalize and wrap words around who we are as humans and acknowledge the shared emotional struggles that we all experience.